right now, I'm really happy, very excited to welcome to the show, first time, a comedy legend, someone that I've admired a great deal, Bob Newhart, celebrating 60 years as a master of comedy. People know his first album, The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, which was the first comedy blockbuster album ever. It went on, of course, The Bob Newhart Show, or Newhart, and through everything else, now something new. Starting today, December 17th, a comedy special he taped years ago called Off the Record is available on Amazon and all the other online platforms. Bob, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Dean. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
Sure. So, Bob, you began as an accountant. I began as a lawyer. And I'm trying to figure out, when you left, I know, we can start a firm. We can make a lot more money now. Newhart and Obeidallah. So, but when you left, because I think back when I told my parents, I'm going to quit being a lawyer and go be a comedian. And they're like, oh, boy. What was it like in your day to like, was it more you phased out over time with them? Or do you go to your family and go like, it's over. I'm going to be on the road and join the circus?
I don't think my parents knew what the hell I was doing. I really
right.
don't. They thought I was nuts. But first of all, I wasn't a good accountant.
Okay.
If I'd been with Enron, they'd still be in business. I mean, the IRS could never have figured out. We don't know what these books mean at all. So they never questioned it. That what are you doing now? I said, well, I'm going to go into comedy. Oh, okay, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I guess my parents looked at it the way that, well, you have a law degree and you could always go back to being a lawyer. I haven't practiced law in 20 plus years. My mom still asks me, like, are you thinking about going back to being a lawyer? I'm like, I would be a worse lawyer than Bob Newhart would be an accountant right now. That's how bad I would be. Because
we'd both be in prison.
I'd be so, like, I wish, yes, it would not work out well. But when you started comedy, and I imagine it was in the 1950s when you started stand-up, what was the circuit like then? Because now, obviously, for decades now, there's been a circuit. Improvs are out there and comedy clubs and comedy theaters. What was it like starting out in the 50s?
We never had that. We never had that comedy clubs. It was. I decided to do it. I said, I got to find this out. People keep saying, "Oh, you're a funny guy," and I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life saying, I wonder what would have happened if I had tried comedy. I'm going to try it, and if I fail, at least I know, I tried it. And I said, I'm going to take, like 1 year. I was an accountant for the Glidden Company, the paint company.
Oh yeah, that's a big company, sure.
Yeah, and I used to be in charge of petty cash. And at the end of the day, the salesman, they'd give me receipts during the motel or gasoline or whatever, and I give them cash out of petty cash. And then at the end of the day, I had to take what was left out of the petty cash, and then take the invoices. But it never balanced. 5 o'clock came and all the other guys left, and I'd spend like 3-4 hours trying to figure out where $1.50 was,
Right.
And
so that's
and
what
one day I said to hell with it, and it was under $1.50. So I took $1.50 out of my pocket and I put it in the petty cash. But then the next day it was $2 over, so I took the $2 out, And the head of the accounting department, he said, my legal name is George Robert. So he said, George, these aren't sound accounting principles. And I said, Mr. Hutchinson, I remember his name. I said, I don't think I'm cut out for accounting. And because it made perfect sense to me,
Right.
And
right.
So I said, I'm gonna try my hand at comedy. So.
And that's what. It's interesting. I was a lawyer, and people would tell me at my law firm, "You should do comedy," and then they would follow up with like, "You should do anything else but the law," like whatever. Like comedy.
Dean, they don't mind funny lawyers. They don't like funny accountants.
No, I guess that's true. But so when you started out, though, were you performing at? It was nightclubs then, right? I guess where singers were, and they'd have a comic open. Is that how you began?
No, I actually I worked around Chicago. A friend of mine was a disc jockey, Dan Sorkin, one of the great disc jockeys of, John Sherwood in San Francisco, and the Warner Brother people were coming through Chicago to, and they called on Dan because he was like a number one disc jockey there, and he said, I got this friend of mine, I think he's funny. And they said, well, have him put some stuff down on tape and we'll listen to it. So he called me up and he said, you got a tape recorder? I said, no, I don't. He said, okay, borrow a tape recorder and record the stuff, that you've been doing, that you've been breaking me up with. And
Right.
so it was the driving instructor, Abe Lincoln, and the submarine commander were the three routines I put on the tape. And so they listened to it, and Warner Brothers, they said, okay, we like it, yeah, so we'll record you at your next nightclub. I said, well, we got a problem, because I've never played a nightclub. And they said, well, we'll have to find a nightclub for you, And it took about a year for them to find a nightclub that would take a chance on a guy who had never done stand-up in his life.
Wow.
But they found a club in Houston, the Tidelands in Houston, Texas, and I went down with all the bravado I could muster. Because one of the first things you learn in stand-up is you got to look like you're the boss of the stage. If you're not in control, it makes the people nervous and they don't laugh. And
right.
So with all the bravado I could muster, I walked out that first night and 2 weeks later recorded the album, and it went crazy.
So that's when you recorded the Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart? That's where you recorded it?
First time I recorded.
That's where today,
first
and
time
people
on
don't
a
know.
nightclub floor, yeah.
That is so stunning because today when people do a special, and the few I've been involved with, you work on your act for years, and then you get to the point where you finally get a break, and then maybe you record another thing a year later, and you work in the clubs nonstop, and you perfect it. You recorded a classic comedy album, which it knocked Frank Sinatra and not King Cole off the charts. It was #1 album of the day, and you recorded after doing it was your first comedy show. This is ridiculous. Oh my gosh, I'm so amazed. I'm chatting with Bob Newhart, if you don't know. So Bob, I saw you, Elf is playing nonstop now, and I love Elf, and you did a great job. And I used to work with Will. I worked at Saturday Night Live years ago on the production staff, and I worked with Will, who's such a good guy. But I saw you did a reading to raise money for the Georgia Democrats over there. And you're not someone who's...
Past Sunday, yeah.
But you're someone from the old school of comedy and show business where politics really wasn't something you associate with your name. Was this something where you've been doing politics beneath the surface by this, or was this something new for you to actually lend your name to something that was partisan? And I'm glad you did it. I'm a Democrat. I'm on board with the Georgia candidates.
Yeah.
I had John Ossoff on the show a few times. But what made you do this? I'm just curious.
Well, I first started actually with the album came out in '60, and I was campaigning for John F. Kennedy, because he's Catholic and I'm Catholic,
right?
And the priest, they never said it, but you knew if you didn't, you'd go to hell, So and then I campaigned for Bobby and for Teddy and then for a while I didn't do it, and then I voted for Biden, and I figured, well, if you vote for the guy, you got to help him. You got to he's got to have a Senate that's in his corner, and so anyway, it was Will asked me to do it, and he's such a great guy. And,
yeah, he is.
And so we did it Sunday, and they raised, I think I heard $400,000 for the Democratic Senate committee. Yeah,
that's great stuff. That's great. And Will Ferrell, who everybody knows from comedy, one of the nicest people, sincerely, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And it's such a rare commodity that he's a star. And I knew him from years ago from SNL. What a great guy. You know, it's funny. Famously, the Newhart series ended with was a dream scenario, and you woke up and it was a dream.
Yeah.
I feel like Trump. I feel like this has been Newhart. Like I'm like we're gonna wake up and Obama's still president, and this has all been some kind of nightmare that I've lived through for the last 4 years. Is there any chance that we're in an episode of Newhart for the last 4 years and it's gonna end like this? Or is it a dream? No, I guess not.
What do you mean? You wake up from the dream and Trump's still president?
No, I want to be. Oh no, that Obama's president, and you're going, oh my God, Barack, I had this worst dream. You know the guy from The Apprentice? He's been president for 4 years, and he's been horrible. So that's my. I wish that could be the case. So let's talk about your special. And again, it's on. If you have Amazon Prime, I watched it today I have Amazon Prime, but it's on Google and iTunes and everything. It was recorded in 1995, but it has some of the classic bits you mentioned. Abe Lincoln, the driving instructor. I found it was so interesting watching you, Bob, that you record this in 95, but even in that set, the driving instructor sketch has you dealing with a female driver. And you say to the crowd, is that sexist? And the crowd goes, yes, it is. But you...
Yeah, some of the women would go, they'd like groan, you know.
Right. But they let you get away with it. But the point was, comedy is always evolving, and what an audience overall accepts and what they don't. The comic, some jokes that you could have told years ago might not be appropriate today, or some jokes, like you said, the Abe Lincoln joke is actually funnier then in 95 than when you wrote it, because it's to do with packaging. But
Yeah.
do you think the idea comedy does evolve based on the sensibilities of the audiences around the country?
Yeah, there's no question. You have to adapt to it. One of the reasons, Dean, for the album was I recorded the album and then we sent the raw tape to Warner Brothers and they edited it and they were used to cutting down the size of an album, largely a musical album, and they'd say, hey, we got to pick up a second there, and there's 2 seconds we can grab there. So when it came out, and I'm glad for the success it had, but it wasn't the way I did it, and the way I heard it in my head. And so in 95, Showtime came along and they asked me what would you like to do, and I said, I'd really like to record the album the way I heard it, And so that was one of the reasons for the album, and then this is a chance to get it out on get it out digital, which is a whole new world. That's
right. I thought it was really. While it's taped in 1995, the humor is still really funny. Like the King Kong with the security guard on his first day at work, and I'm like, what a great, the premise, I can see when you're explaining it, you can see this sketch come to life. I mean, you create a vivid, three-dimensional sketch right in front of people there. I thought that's really remarkable. And all of that was from the button-down mind of Bob Newhart? Like, all of that was from the original album?
Yeah. But you know what happened? Because the ones that last seem they just occur to you. They occur to you whole. They're not pieces. And you do some the next night. And I was having dinner. My wife and I, Ginny and I, were having dinner in New York. We were doing an ill-fated show called The Entertainers with Carol Burnett. And we were having dinner in New York with Carol and her husband Joe, and I had this. I was seated in such a way. I had this unobstructed view of the Empire State Building, and I started to think about. They brought up King Kong, and I thought, whenever I took a job, they always had a week's orientation program where they tell you what you could expect to find your first day on the job. And I thought to myself, what if it's the first night on the job for a new guard? He's gone through a week's orientation, and now he's got to call the boss and tell him there's an ape on the building.
It's so fun, and if you watch it, I mean, Bob acts it out with has a phone on the stage, and that's why it really turns into a sketch, even though it's just you, and we hear you only one side of the conversation, but it's hilarious. I imagine to this day, though, the comedy ideas, they don't stop. Like, they must still come to you. Do you write them down? Do you ever try to do anything with them?
Yeah, but you know, Dean, you can't turn off your brain. You know,
No,
they just keep. I remember one time I was in New York. I was taking a cab in New York, and we were coming down 6th Avenue, heading up toward Central Park, and we stopped at the light, and there was this sign. It was a psychic. The guy was a psychic, and he had this sign, "Lost our lease." And I thought to myself, well, if he's really a psychic, he would have known he was going to lose the lease, you know?
Exactly.
So he can't be a very good psychic, you know?
No. Right. I think it's very funny. As a comic myself, when I see the psychic and they're open from 9 to 5, I'm like, if he was really good, he'd just be open with the exact time he knew when people were going to be there. Like, I'm open from 9 to 9:12. I'll be back at 10:15 and 11:45 but that's funny. You see it. We see it the same. I mean, it's our minds are twisted or not, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's remarkable. Do you try out jokes at all in front of your family? 'Cause especially in the time of COVID, I can't go to clubs. My poor fiance, every night it's like, "Showtime, honey. Here's some new jokes." Like, oh, she looks down. But do you try them? Like around not this holiday because of COVID, but in the past, have you told them new jokes and stuff? Have you actually tried out some of the bits?
Yeah, I try them out on friends of mine. I try them out on my wife. I try them out on my secretary, and then decide, whether
are they good?
There's something there.
Have you found them to be a good barometer of if the joke has potential?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's funny when I talk to my fiance, and she won't laugh sometime, and I'm like, "You just don't get it." Like, I blame her. I used to, but I'm like, okay, that's me. I'm like, it's my fault. I got to go back and work on the joke. So, well, it's a great special, off the record. Again, it's on everything from Amazon, Google Play, iTunes. It's classic comedy come to life. By the way, when you performed that very first time, The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, did you wear a suit and tie for that very first show ever on stage?
Did I what?
Did you wear a suit and tie on stage for the first time like you now? On the special you wore a suit and tie, but I'm going all the way back to the special you taped, the album you taped it for 1960. Were you in a suit and tie from the beginning?
Oh yeah. That was like a uniform. You remember, as you mentioned, being a stand-up. It's risky,
Yeah.
And I found out after maybe 20 years that's why I did it. I used to I'd stand in the wings and they'd play my bomb music, and as I'm going out I'd say to myself, why couldn't I sing? That feeling, I'm sure you had it too.
Every comic has the dream of being a singer because you can sing your hits. You don't have to write any new material. You just sing your hits. And everyone, all I want to hear is the old hits. You're like, instead we have to write new material, and we got to be ourselves, and you're alone on the stage with just you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. Well,
I love it. I love it. That's one reason I did this, because I started in stand-up, and I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to. I was very proud of it, and that was one reason for the. For turning on the digital version of the 1995 show.
And I understand, Bob, that even you love stand-up so much. When you were still doing your TV series, you were still going out there and performing in the clubs, not for the money per se, as much as the enjoyment of making an audience laugh.
Well, the money was important.
I was just trying to be nice there. Of course, the money's important.
Let's not get carried away, Dean.
Right, I understand.
No, you're right. I still do it. I mean, up until the pandemic, I guess last year I did 5, 6 stand-up dates. As I was saying. What kept drawing me back was that danger, maybe this won't work tonight,
Well, I have that danger on my radio show every night. So I have that and the comedy. Every night I'm like, is this going to work? Is anybody going to call? Am I just talking to myself? Am I even on air? These are the things that go through my head some nights. So, but all right, Bob, it was great. It was an honor chatting with you. Again, it's called Off the Record. It's available tonight. Today's my birthday. Today, on my birthday, a gift.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Is Off the Record available on all the platforms. It's really funny. It's 100% clean because it's Bob Newhart. And it's great for families, for everyone to check out for the holidays, a great gift. Bob, it was great chat, and I hope to chat with you again. If you go back after COVID, go on the road, you want to plug some dates, please come back on. Love to chat with you.
Oh, thank you, Dean. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
And have a Merry Christmas, you and your wife,
You
Ginny,
too.
and your whole
and a
family.
healthy New Year.
Thank you. You too. Take care, Bob.